I'm Bakhtiar Sanovan. We are watching A News now. Let's take a look at today's top stories. The United States Senate advances a deal to reopen the government after 40 days of shutdown. Two top BBC executives resign over a misleading documentary edit on Donald Trump. And a battle for Pokrovsk continues as Russian forces make gains. After weeks of political gridlock and mounting frustration across the United States, there is finally movement in Washington, D.C. Senators have voted to advance a deal that could reopen the government after the record-breaking shutdown. Let's take a closer look at what this agreement means and what hurdles still remain.
The motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
The United States Senate has taken a major step toward ending the longest government shutdown in the nation's history. After 40 days of deadlock, senators voted 60-40 on Sunday to advance a deal that would temporarily fund the government until the end of January. The agreement was reached between Republicans and a small group of Democrats who broke ranks with their party's leadership.
All will receive their back wages.
In exchange, Republicans agreed to hold a vote in December on extending key health insurance tax credits under the Affordable Care Act. Democrats consider this as a priority. However, some Democrats remain divided, arguing that the concessions win does not go far enough, while Republicans welcome the deal.
After 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring this shutdown to an end. And I don't need to go over all the reasons why it's imperative that we get the government open as soon as possible. From the truly precarious situation we are in with regard to air travel to the fact that our staffs have been working without pay for a full 40 days now, all of us, Republicans and Democrats, who support this bill know that the time to act is now.
We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage. From cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid, while he builds a billion-dollar ballroom with gold-plated toilets. Therefore, I must vote no. This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis.
The partial shutdown has left about 1.4 million federal employees without pay and caused widespread disruption to public services, from food assistance to airport operations. The bill now heads to the House of Representatives, where it still faces debate before it can go to President Donald Trump for his signature.
Airlines cancelled more than 2,800 U.S. flights and delayed over 10,000 across the United States, the most disruptions on a single day since the government shutdown began. Major airlines were dealing with a third day of government-mandated flight cuts, along with raising air traffic controller absences, which has caused thousands of delays and cancellations. Delta Airlines was especially hard hit, cancelling or delaying 52% of its mainline flights on Sunday. Millions of people usually travel in the run-up to Thanksgiving, one of the most important U.S. holidays. Now, two top BBC executives have resigned after a memo that was leaked revealed a BBC documentary misled viewers by editing a speech by U.S. President Donald Trump. BBC Director General Tim Davie and Head of News Deborah Turness both resigned last night. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed the news and said on a social media post, quote, "These are very dishonest people who try to step on the scales of a presidential election." The BBC has denied the edit was politically motivated. Here is more.
The BBC has announced the resignation of its top leadership, Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Executive Deborah Turness. The controversy erupted after a leaked internal report revealed Panorama had merged two separate parts of Trump's 6th January 2021 speech to make it appear he urged supporters to storm the Capitol, with The Telegraph exposing the edit. President Trump called the BBC's leaders dishonest on Truth Social, thanking The Telegraph for exposing what he called corrupt journalists, also saying they tried to influence the presidential elections as well. Davey, who has led the BBC since 2020, had repeatedly stressed impartiality.
And deliver a BBC that is really focused on world-class, impartial, landmark output. And I look forward to us resolving this situation and looking forward to delivering that.
His resignation now marks a dramatic fall from that promise. Turness said the ongoing controversy had caused damage to the BBC and that the buck stops with me. In Washington, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reacted on X with two words, shot and chaser, posting screenshots of the Telegraph's headline alongside the BBC's own story announcing Davey's resignation. Former BBC boss Roger Mosey says the corporation was slow to respond to allegations.
The BBC was slow to respond to the latest allegations, and I think they were flat-footed for 3 or 4 days when the story broke about the Michael Prescott dossier. That said, the Director General of the BBC is a most enormous job, and you're dealing with MasterChef, and you're dealing with Hugh Edwards, and you're dealing with all these other issues that happen. And I think it's almost too much for one person. And if you look at the recent history of DG, with George Entwistle having to resign, Greg Dyke having to resign, all the pressures on Tim Davie, it's a simple question. Is DG of the BBC too big a job for one person? And does it need the BBC to rethink the way it handles both its editorial and its chief executive officer?
The BBC board, chaired by Samir Shah, will now lead the process of selecting a new Director General through its nominations committee under the BBC Charter. Davie will remain in post until a successor is appointed.
Over to Ukraine, where Russian forces appear on the brink of seizing the eastern city of Pokrovsk, a symbolic prize President Vladimir Putin has sought for 21 months. Fighting has intensified in recent days. However, Kiev denies Ukrainian troops are surrounded. Let's take a look.
Russian strikes and fierce fighting on Ukraine's city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region are continuing. The Russian armies say they've repelled 7 attacks launched by the Ukrainian army from the northwest of Krasnoarmeysk and thwarted 8 attempts by the trapped Ukrainian army to break out to the north. However, Ukrainian troops claim progress in repelling Russian attempts, saying a total of 248 combat clashes took place on Sunday. Analysts say a Russian victory in Pokrovsk would open the way for further offensives on other cities in the Donetsk region, including Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Before the war, the city had a population of about 60,000 and was a key industrial and transport hub in the Ukrainian-controlled part of Donbass. By the summer of 2025, only around 1,500 residents remained. Long viewed as a strategic city for Kyiv because of its road and rail links, it sits at the junction of several major routes leading to Donetsk in the east and Dnipro and Zaporizhia to the west. It's also played a crucial role in battlefield operations, serving as a supply line that supported Ukrainian logistics before these resources fanned out to smaller villages and frontline positions around the city. Frequent drone and artillery attacks on the main highway and rail line have forced Kyiv to seek alternative supply routes, shifting the logistical hub away from Pokrovsk, a significant gain for Russia.
The UK is sending support to Belgium in response to disruptive drone activity. Military personnel and equipment are already being deployed as NATO allies work together to strengthen security. The origin of the drones remains unclear, but incidents have caused significant disruption at airports across Europe.
We know that there's been sabotage, the Russian state has killed people on our soil in the UK. And so the so-called hybrid warfare, this warfare that's below the traditional threshold, are things that we need to strengthen ourselves against, whether that's cyber, whether that's in space. All of those things matter to us. The Strategic Defence Review set out quite clearly that we face a future or present that is more volatile, more uncertain, and there are growing threats to the alliance and to the UK. That's why we need to modernise, that's why we need to ensure that we are, to use the term, warfighting ready, and that's why the government has committed to invest unprecedented amounts in defence spending over the next few years, more than I've ever known in my career.
Over in Slovakia, 2 trains collided on Sunday, injuring dozens of passengers. Most suffered minor injuries, while at least 11 were taken for treatment, according to officials who confirmed there were no fatalities. Authorities say the accident happened when one locomotive crashed into the back of the other in the corridor between the capital Bratislava and Pezinok. Over to the Philippines, where Super Typhoon Phung Wong made landfall on Sunday, with 2 fatalities reported. 1 million people were forced to evacuate. Torrential rain hit the island of Luzon, with winds of around 185 kilometers an hour.
Super Typhoon Phung Wong, locally known as Uwan, is moving toward the Philippines, forcing over 100,000 people to evacuate as it brings destructive winds and heavy rainfall. The storm carries sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour with gusts up to 230 kilometers per hour and is expected to make landfall in Aurora province, central Luzon, late Sunday. Severe conditions have already been reported in Catanduanes and parts of Bicol. The highest storm alert, signal number 5, remains in effect across southeastern Luzon, while Metro Manila is under signal number 3. Schools have suspended classes, local flights have been cancelled, and coastal communities have been cleared. In Santiago City, residents rushed to evacuation shelters ahead of the storm.
Whenever there's a typhoon, we often come here to take shelter because we live near a creek. Whenever there's a typhoon, our place gets flooded and the waters can reach over our heads. I'm scared because I have small grandchildren with me, along with my own children. So we decided to stay here at the evacuation area.
Phung Wong makes landfall just days after Typhoon Kalmegi, which killed nearly 200 people and left widespread devastation. Authorities warn that while the storm may weaken over land, it could still unleash flooding, landslides and powerful winds. Emergency responders remain on standby as the country braces for further impact.
COP30 officially begins today in Brazil, but in the Amazon Delta, rising pollution, climate change and disrupted livelihoods are putting people and nature under unprecedented pressure. Orkan Amashov reports from the Amazon Delta, Brazil.
This is the place where the Amazon River actually unfurls into the Delta. This is a place where the Amazon River actually meets the Atlantic Ocean, not far away from here. And the problems surrounding this river are actually multidimensional. It's not just about the water levels going up and down. It's also about this river, together with tributaries, being actually the lifeline to that massive Amazon basin, covering about 5.5 million square kilometers, which acts as the vital ingredient enabling our planet to receive enough oxygen. About 10% of our planet's oxygen actually comes from this Amazon basin. And Amazon, actually larger area, not just the basin. Actually, the rainforest together with the surrounding areas, they actually comprised of 7 million square kilometers, which actually accounts for 40% of South America, and much, much bigger than the entire geographical expanse of the European Union. So we're actually talking about something gargantuan and big. And the reality here that we're all facing is that these people's lives are not just about their own individual cases, but also about the entire human civilization.
Human health and the surrounding ecosystems are being threatened by what the locals say is the natural rhythm of flood and drought. But that pollution and climate change are disrupting that rhythm. The river that sustains life here is under pressure, and the people who depend on it are feeling the impact every day.
We can't catch fish anymore. The pollution is too much. The water is too hot. All the shrimp and fish have disappeared. We had to change jobs. Now we transport materials or work in factories. The river doesn't give us what we need.
Every 15 days the river fills, it floods the island, then goes down. This is our life. But now, the water comes polluted with chemicals. It's no longer safe for fishing or agriculture.
For experts like Helena Fonseca Rodriguez, the Amazon's well-being is inseparable from public health.
Espero que sim, que eu espero que a COP traga soluções.
Changes in water levels and pollution have a brutal impact on public health. People get sick. The SUS, Brazil's public health system, is under pressure. COP30 must bring solutions that protect both nature and people. I really hope the COP brings solutions, above all solutions for people's health. But there are so many negotiation tables that we don't really know how far we'll get.
Polluted waters, disrupted livelihoods, and communities struggling to survive. The future of the Amazon and the health of its people depends on action. Experts say that if the world does not respond promptly, the consequences will ripple far beyond these shores.
Hundreds of people protested against the worsening air quality in Delhi. Parents and environmental activists demonstrated at the India Gate War Memorial in the capital city, urging action to reduce the health impact of the smog.
Hundreds of people took to the streets of New Delhi wearing masks, demanding urgent action against a worsening air pollution. Demonstrators gathered at the iconic war memorial calling for stricter measures to clean the air and protect public health. Air quality regularly deteriorates during the winter months, exposing millions to hazardous levels of pollution. At least 80 protesters were detained as clashes broke out between demonstrators and police officers.
We are being detained in our own city for protesting against pollution.
Air quality experts warn that the smog is far from seasonal and say that exposure to fine particulate matter in Delhi's capital is shortening lives by nearly a dozen years. They say respiratory illnesses and cardiovascular disease are on the rise. Despite ongoing efforts by the government, including water sprinklers for dust mitigation and deploying smog guns in high-rises, the city remains one of the most polluted capitals in the world.
The historic city of Bethlehem is set to celebrate a festive Christmas this year after 2 years impacted first by the pandemic and then by the conflict in Gaza. With tourists returning, the city is reviving cherished holiday traditions and giving a much-needed boost to families and local businesses that rely on the festive season.
Bethlehem is preparing to bring back full Christmas celebrations this year after 2 seasons of reduced events due to the war in Gaza. Located in the West Bank, the city felt the wider impact of the conflict as tourism dropped sharply. Now, with visitors beginning to return, officials say restoring Christmas traditions is not only about faith and culture, it is also essential to livelihoods in a city that depends on the holiday season for income. Manja Square and the Church of the Nativity are being decorated again. The Christmas tree lighting ceremony, a central symbol of the season here, is being brought back after 2 years of much quieter observances.
This year will be an amazing Christmas. It will be a different Christmas. We will light the tree of Christmas, the tree of Bethlehem.
The war led to cancelled tours, empty hotels and closed businesses. For many families, the holiday season is the most important time of the year for earnings. As the home of the Church of the Nativity and widely recognized as the birthplace of Jesus, Bethlehem holds deep spiritual significance for Christians around the world, making it a major center of pilgrimage.
And it's been a dream of mine for 50 plus years since my parents gave me a little Bible with the pictures in it, and being able to see this in real life and not imagining things anymore.
Inside the Church of the Nativity, worshippers gather at the grotto, where services and prayers are gradually filling the space once more. Church staff say even modest increases in visitors help sustain the religious and cultural life of the city. For shop owners and street sellers, the return of tourists is directly tied to recovering from financial losses.
We had Corona for 2 years, so there was no tourism. But after Corona, we were able to breathe a little bit for a few months, and then the war happened. We got really out of breath. It's been 2 years in a below-zero level. But today, we hope that God provides for us and tourism goes back to how it used to be.
As Bethlehem prepares to light its tree and welcome pilgrims again, the city is working to restore not only a cherished tradition, but also the livelihoods that depend on it each December.
After the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay tuned.
Partnership with Azerbaijan will allow Israel also to enjoy some of the benefits.
What makes Azerbaijan a uniquely strategic partner for Israel?
Peace process with Armenia, which will bring more and more stability to both countries.
One of the key elements of that Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire agreement is delivery of the humanitarian aid to Gaza.
More and more humanitarian aid entering Gaza from various checkpoints. We cannot allow a terrorist organization to sit on our borders.
What is power? Has leadership truly evolved, or are the old rules of geopolitics still pulling the strings behind the scenes? Who is really powerful? And what makes people feel powerless? Our new series explores the secrets, strategies, and consequences of power.
It's often said the world never sleeps, but who's ready to wake you up with all you need to know about what is happening across the globe and in the region?
We are. Daybreak is live every morning, bringing you a complete wrap-up of the stories from overnight and all the news already happening in the world.
The biggest global headlines, the key regional developments, the must-read stories shaping the day.
We show them, we discuss them, we guide you through their meaning. We give you the news and a first look at the key headlines.
I'm Nadia Jani.
And I'm Lou Brown.
Join us, it's Daybreak here at A News.
Welcome back to A News Now. Let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara has arrived in Washington, D.C. for an official visit, just 2 days after the U.S. formally revoked his status as a specially designated global terrorist. He's scheduled to meet with President Donald Trump today and will become the first Syrian president to visit the White House.
Syrian interim President Ahmad al-Shara arrived in Washington on Saturday for an official visit, the first by a Syrian leader to the US since the country's independence in 1946. The visit comes after the United Nations Security Council, the US and the UK lifted sanctions on al-Shara and his interior minister, citing progress under Syria's new leadership and removing them from the specially designated global terrorist list. Since taking office, al-Shara has moved to distance Syria from extremist groups, including former ties to al-Qaeda, and pledged to tackle remaining threats from the Islamic State group. Syrian authorities said security services detained suspected IS members ahead of his trip. Al-Shara and President Trump are expected to discuss regional security, counter IS efforts, and Syria's broader re-engagement with the international community. White House officials said talks will also cover military and humanitarian cooperation. The Syrian president previously met Trump in Riyadh in May, where the US leader praised progress made under his interim government. The Washington visit underscores al-Shara's efforts to stabilize Syria and strengthen ties with the US.
Also said to be in the United States is Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. He is expected to hold meetings focused on bilateral relations and regional developments. Officials have not yet revealed further details on the agenda. Fidan last traveled to the United States in September, joining President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the 80th UN General Assembly in New York. As peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have collapsed, both sides say a fragile ceasefire remains in place. The talks held in Istanbul last week were aimed at easing weeks of rising tensions along the border. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
As talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan remained unresolved, Afghan official spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid confirmed on Saturday that peace negotiations had failed, claiming Islamabad insisted that Afghanistan take responsibility for Pakistan's internal security, something Kabul says is beyond its capacity. Despite the breakdown, Mujahid stressed that the ceasefire has not been violated and will continue to be observed. In a statement, Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar thanked Turkey and Qatar for mediating the talks, but said Afghanistan must uphold its counter-terrorism commitments. It stressed goodwill toward the Afghan people, yet vowed to oppose any Taliban actions harming regional stability and to protect its own security and sovereignty. The recent round of talks followed last month's deadly clashes between the neighboring countries. Meanwhile, Turkey is stepping up its diplomatic role. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in Baku on Saturday, expressing hope that the talks could still yield lasting stability. Erdogan also announced that Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Defense and Intelligence will travel to Pakistan this week, part of a new trilateral push to secure a permanent ceasefire. In Kabul, senior Afghan Foreign Ministry official Shafi Azam told A News that Afghanistan remains genuine in wanting peace, but accused Pakistan of making unrealistic demands. For now, mistrust between the two neighbors runs deep. Turkey's next round of diplomacy could be the last chance to keep the fragile peace intact. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
Armenia and India are working to formalize cooperation in international road transportation for both passengers and freight. Armenia's transport ministry says a draft agreement on international automobile transport has been prepared. The document has been sent to India for review and approval. Currently, road transport between the two countries remains unregulated, creating challenges for cargo movement and limiting broader economic cooperation, according to the ministry. Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the historic Syria-US talks in Washington, D.C., the push to lift the remaining sanctions, and what this visit could mean for the regional fight against the Islamic State. Stay with us.
and welcome to Primetime. What a show we've got lined up for you. In a complex world, clarity is power. Two hours live, diplomacy dissected in a spin-free environment. That's Prime Time with me, Guy Schoen, weekdays on A News.
What is power? Has leadership truly evolved, or are the old rules of geopolitics still pulling the strings behind the scenes? Who is really powerful? And what makes people feel powerless? Our new series explores the secrets, strategies, and consequences of power.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption. Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Hello, I'm Jay. That's challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. Hi, Candy. One important note to clear. I'm here.
Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Hello, we are recording the shade of November.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington, London, Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul for A News.
Partnership with Azerbaijan will allow Israel also to enjoy some of the benefits.
What makes Azerbaijan a uniquely strategic partner for Israel?
Peace process with Armenia, which will bring more and more stability to both countries.
One of the key elements of that Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire agreement is delivery of the humanitarian aid to Gaza.
more and more humanitarian aid entering Gaza from various checkpoints. We cannot allow a terrorist organization to sit on our borders.
Welcome back to A News. Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara is in Washington for historic talks with US President Donald Trump, the first such official visit since Syrian independence. At the heart of the discussion, the possible full lifting of remaining US sanctions and Syria's proposed role in the fight against Islamic State. To help us understand the significance of this visit and the broader geopolitical stakes, we are joined by political analyst Lamis Jadid, speaking to us from Lisbon. Lamis, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Lamis, first, how significant is this visit in symbolic terms, given that it's the first official Syrian presidential visit to Washington since 1946?
Yeah, exactly. It's since the independence of Syria, and this has a huge significance in the whole region and for the Syrian, of course. Now we are witnessing a new identity for Syria, a new line that Syria might take in the Middle East, and also regarding the international scenes of or alliance, if we could say. So Syria now is considered to be an ally for the American interest in the Middle East.
Now, Ms., in your opinion, what does President al-Shara hope to achieve concretely during these talks, particularly regarding sanctions relief?
Listen, already now we witnessed two times meeting between the two presidents, between Mr. al-Shara and Trump. Once it was in Saudi Arabia in May, and he went now for the Oval Office, exactly in the day of the 250 years of the Marines being established in the United States. It's symbolic as it is this big day for the Syrian. I believe it's symbolic only when it comes to sanctions, because the sanctions that were removed were sanctions removed from his person and the Minister of Interior, Syrian Minister of Interior. So there is a long way to go regarding the Caesar Acts that needs a Congress approval, but this might be considered as the pathway to remove it, even if it takes time. Of course, the removal also of UN Security Council sanctions, this helped a lot, but always this process happened before the travel of the Syrian president to any country. So it's still symbolic, but we hope that it will affect the whole Syrian people, not only the validity of its president.
Al-Shara's government came to power after ousting Bashar al-Assad. To what extent has this changed Syria's relationship with the West?
This changed the whole game that Syria played since decades now. Of course, Syria now is considered as an ally to the European sphere and to the American interest in the Middle East. Trump is wishing for an air base near Damascus. Maybe Mr. al-Shara, he is hoping for more legitimacy for his government, that many of it was in the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It's HTS, of course, as we know, it's a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And slowly nobody believed that they will continue till this moment in ruling such an important country like Syria, but it seems they succeeded until today in keeping control in the whole country. And still they have some interior issues regarding minorities that they need really to find a serious solution. But when it comes to international relation with the West, with joining the camp for defeating ISIS or Al-Qaeda in Iraq and in the whole Middle East, if being part of the coalition that America is creating in the whole Middle East, including having some kind of agreement with Israel, and this is the most important point, with some kind of Abraham Accord agreements or some security deals that might concern some important territories like Golan Heights that was occupied by Israel since 1967. We will see what this visit might give us, but I think it's going well until today.
Now, Ms. Israel is reportedly opposed to a full lifting of sanctions. How influential could Israeli lobbying be in shaping the U.S. Congress stance?
We all know that the Israeli lobby has a huge impact on any decision that might be formed in the American Congress. Of course, they might have a positive result when they might interfere. But I think this will take a process of time, and also they need to go more, to give it more legitimacy when it comes to the media, and they need some campaigns also, because people were doctrine now for quite long time that these Caesar Act were taken on the base of a human rights violation in Syria, but now the new government also needs to prove some human rights, also protection of minorities before any sanctions is being removed or being taken to the Congress.
Syria has pledged to join the US-led coalition against the Islamic State. Is this a genuine shift in security cooperation or more of a strategic move for sanctions relief? What do you think?
We are speaking politics here. I mean, it's a very nobody could believe ever that a man who was under 10 million bounty from the American government on him will be now leading a country important as Syria. And also we know that many of the people around him were also parts of Al-Qaeda and other group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. So he needs to give proofs really that he's going seriously against Al-Qaeda in Syria and in Iraq, but mainly also in Syria. It's people around him, it's people that helped him to reach where he is today. They are still in their position. They committed other human rights crime and other massacres regarding minorities in Syria. We don't want to enter into all this now, but he needs to give proof that he's really the secular man with suit, that he's playing basketball now, and he forgot his history of extremists. So we need really some time to show on the ground some real decision and real actions.
Recent Syrian security raids targeted Islamic State cells nationwide. How strong is the threat of ISIS resurgence today inside Syria?
You could give me some credit by following the local news in Syria. I mean, until today, there is lots of concerns regarding all minorities who do not have the same faith, like the Islamic Sunni belief. So until today, those minorities, they are under threat. They've been, their daily life have changed dramatically.
Yes.
They do not feel safe in their own homes or villages. And I think all this because of precisely these groups that were affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And
Ahmed
until
al-Sharaa,
today, the Syrian...
Ahmed al-Sharaa said that he's ready to protect them all. Do you believe him?
I would love to believe him. I would love to see this on the ground. I mean, it's easy to say, but even for him, he said, until today, he could not really control these groups. None of them is in the prison, though many of them, they committed serious massacres and crimes in the west and in the south of the country. I believe he needs really to show some real steps regarding keeping an eye on these groups and limiting their controls on a big state like Syria. I mean, they are in control, they have the weapons, and we need to watch up very carefully now. I think there is, Mr. Sharaa has also another problem, is the Kurdish problem, and I think this is one of the main issues that might be discussed in Washington today. And today, by the way, they announced they are ready, the Kurd, to affiliate with the Syrian army, that is a newborn army, as we say, with a new identity, which an Islamic identity. Let's see how also this will work out for him.
Lamis, what role are regional powers, particularly Turkey, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, playing behind the scenes in facilitating this diplomatic opening between Washington and Syria?
A big role. All these three regional powers are played in Syria, and they still do also, as many as any other Arab countries, like in Sudan or in other conflicts in the Middle East. I think these three countries now, they need to take a side, of course, for their agenda, for their own national interest, but they need to show also the international community that all these groups that they are supporting, they will not expose any danger for the future of the Middle East, neither for the international coalition later on. Having such mentality, extremist mentality, in a crossing country like Syria, I mean, this means a lot and should mean a lot to many countries in the region and in the world.
Lamis, finally, in your opinion, if sanctions are lifted, what would be the immediate economic impact inside Syria, especially for everyday citizens?
We all hope that sanctions or lifting sanctions will touch really the daily life of Syrians.
Yes.
But until today, we are not witnessing any of this. The serious actions are the Caesar actions. Nobody really, in America at least, American help to Syria will pass through this pathway. It's a Caesar act. We need to remove it first. But until today, the corruption in Syria today, with this new government, with this new regime, did not change much like with the other regime, the X-regime, for example. There is the same level of corruption. Big companies do not dare to enter the market because there is the entry price, as they call it. You need to pay to enter. Even Saudi Arabia, that promised with so many investment, nothing is being delivered until today. Nobody dares to enter an environment that is not safe first. So first we need to spread security, be sure that these groups are under control, under a real, and I insist on the word real, army, and think and behave as an army of a state and not an army of an ethnic group.
Political analyst Lamis Jadid, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us from Lisbon. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. You're up to date with World News for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.